What's up, everyone? Chris Dennison here. I'm joined by Ricky Yorks and Chris Kiefer. We are chatting about the 2013 450 MX Shootout, specifically, right now, the Suzuki. I want to start off with a gripe. What is this two-tone plastic stuff?
I think the manufacturers all got together before the year started and say, hey, let's just change rear fenders and be cool. But it's not a cool gang to be in.
No, everybody's doing it.
If you're yellow, be yellow. Don't be yellow and black.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
go
agree.
well.
So that's the looks of the bike. It's got a yellow front number plate, which I think personally is kind of stupid because you can't put numbers on it because then you have a yellow background. So maybe they're in with the graphics companies to get some pre-prints going. But looks aside, it's a pretty good bike. I think it's Obama's fault. Thanks a lot, Bin Laden. Motor, we're getting off track.
Yeah.
I think Suzuki's pretty good down low. We complained a little bit that it kind of went soft up top, but what did you feel, Ricky?
The motor was healthy, man. Like right off the bottom, great mid, decent top. You know, it signed off a little early, but it's strong. You know, it's definitely a ripper. Maybe not quite as good as the Cowie, but for me, it was my second pick for motor.
Mm-hmm. And good cornering feel on the Suzuki. We'll get to that in a minute, but do you think the motor plays in the handling of the bike and just what we felt?
Yeah, the motor's strong. The motor is really easy to ride also. It has, like you said, it's really good off the bottom and the mid. I tried some different couplers because Suzuki offers those too, and I really still couldn't get a lot of over rev out of it. If you ever listen to James ride his bike, or any really good guys that ride Suzukis for that matter, it always seems like it's on the rev limiter. You're like, oh my gosh, that guy's revving the crap out of his engine, but it just doesn't really rev that great. But the motor's so easy to ride, and you come out of a corner and it's super smooth, and you got a jump right in front of you, and it's so easy to do. You're like, wow, I can't believe that was that easy. It's just really easy and fun to ride.
Yeah, for something that you have to short shift, the transmission's pretty sweet. You know, a lot of our guys in their notes, even full beginners, said, man, this thing shifts pretty smoothly. It's got a decent clutch on there. But from a handling perspective, I mean, Ricky, we had some issues. One guy called it a rigid yellow nightmare. Yeah. Can you kind of explain the rigidity of the bike and just what you felt?
Yeah, I'm not as picky as Kiefer to maybe pick up on whether it was the fork or the frame, but it's definitely, for me, it was twitchy. You know, as the track got rougher, I noticed the bike was harder to ride. You know, in the morning when we were doing photos and stuff, the track was a freeway, and it was easy to kind of put it anywhere you want and dive into the lines and notice its strong point. But as the track kind of broke down and got choppy and stuff, the bike was definitely translated into a stiff, rigid feeling frame.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the bike now for this year, new change for 2013, has show a separate function fork. Now, Kiefer, you've ridden that fork before on the KX250. It's been on that for, I think, 2 years. Is that to blame for how rigid and harsh it feels, or is it something else?
It's something that I want to try the Suzuki, and we're going to go as, you know, dirt rider test riders. We're going to go all year and do some investigation, so to speak, and try swapping some forks and doing some things. But I'm not a huge fan of the Showa SFS fork. Like he was saying, I think it's more of the frame being too rigid up by the down tubes, and the fork action is okay for me. It seems like it's okay, but it just seems like I still get a lot of feedback in the front. The surprising thing is, like, no matter how rigid it does feel and how harsh it does feel on the bump, the bike still goes in the corners really good. Like, it's amazing. I could come in the corner so hot and still get some, you know, head shake or a little feedback in the front, and the thing just lays right in. It's amazing. Another thing I want to point out too, it's like, I think one of the heaviest bikes in the Shootout. You put it on the stand, you're like, man, I'm throwing my back out throwing this thing on here. Plus with mud packed on there, I was like, oh my gosh. But it does not translate onto the track.
Definitely not.
It lays over nice. It feels light in the air.
Yeah.
I think Suzuki is a big sleeper as far as an overall bike contender in 2013.
Yeah, I agree. It's a good bike. And just touching on the fork again, an interesting thing with the SFF is that you can adjust that fork spring preload because it's separate function on both sides. So, you know, with us, stock setting is 6. That's actually clicks counted from full out, which is a little bit different. We liked it at 4, totally different setting. And Ricky, I don't know. I mean, as far as the cornering, that's something that time and time again kept coming up in our notes. A lot of guys love how the bike handles, especially in tight ruts. Did you feel that when you're turning the thing?
Definitely. I mean, I think that's like the trade out with the Cowie being kind of long, squatting. It's more stable in a straight line, but it, you know, sacrifices in corners. And Suzuki, you know, maybe not as stable in the straight line, but nothing, you know, dives into inside lines like the Suzuki. That bike just awesome to corner on.
Mm-hmm.
been a Suzuki trait for years. Suzuki's always cornered, and,
Yeah.
you know, and that's
pretty
that's
all
been their
around.
MO for a lot of years. But I think the motor's picked up. Even though the chassis is rigid, that's actually gone up in the years, and not a lot of guys expect to be Suzuki's good, but it's a great bike.
Yeah, and from a fit and finish perspective, I mean, what do you like, what don't you like? Personally, I don't know if I trust Suzuki durability as much as a Honda, and I don't know if that's a perception. We've had a little bit of experience. I'm not saying it's a bad bike. I'm not saying it's a lemon, but I think Suzuki's typically take a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more upkeep. You know, Kiefer, what do you think about that?
I think you're right. I think the fit and finish, I think the overall looks of the bike is okay. I'm not, like we said, the rear fender's kind of but the bolts seem to be easier to strip out, or they fall out more. You got to really keep an eye on that stuff more than the other bikes. It's just, yeah, like you said, it's not the best known, hey, this bike's going to last me all year. Let's just change the oil and ride it. You got to take more care of this bike than you do other bikes.
If you're that weekend warrior that just rides the thing all year and doesn't check anything, you might have a few things falling off or some problems.
Well, I did run out of oil one time on one of the test bikes, and it did run for a little while. I had no oil in it for a while.
That was actually James Stewart's fault. That wasn't your fault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So the way you talk about the bike, does it win? I mean, you seem to like it.
It's close for me. It's up there. It's in my top 2. So, like I said, we went over this before. I'm a big cornering guy. I have to have a bike that corners, and this bike is insane in corners, man. I just want to go rip corner shots all day with this thing. So the motor's really good. A few little things here and there, a muffler, maybe a mapping change can make it rev out better. So I'm definitely going to try some of that. But it's going to be one of the bikes I'm going to be bugging you about to take over the course of the year, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you can have it. I mean, personally, it's not top 2 bike for me. I really like the Suzuki, but I couldn't get over the rigid feedback from the frame. And I tried every suspension setting out there I could try. Just really felt it kind of through my wrist, through my feet, coming into whoops, rollers, square edge stuff, just a lot of feedback on the bike. I'd be interested to try playing around, see what we could do with the frame, but big picture, Ricky, what do you think of the Suzuki overall in your ranking?
For me, on the smooth track, it was my second favorite bike, and on a rough track, it was my third or fourth. So I definitely noticed the chassis and the frame.
So if your boys go, hey, just grade the track, you're gonna grab a Suzuki.
Yes.
Got it. We're going to Glen Helen. You ain't grabbing it?
No.
No, Glen Helen's got big old whoops.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Overall, it's pretty positive impression of the Suzuki. I think it's a good bike, and we got some different feedback from novices and beginners too. So you guys can check out the 450 Shootout, see how the Suzuki did overall, and also keep an eye on the other videos because we're talking about all the brands. We're breaking them down. Thanks for watching.